Are we sure? Welcome everybody to Pinstripe Chronicles. I'm Tats, and I'm here with Donald and Rob, and we are just having a blast on this Friday. So, what the hell are we talking about today? Yes, prospects.
What a host, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, if we were on camera 5 minutes ago, this would all make complete sense. So, we were looking at. We've already looked at our top tradable players, and now we're going to be looking at who we will not want to trade within the Yankee organization as far as the prospects go, not major league players. So we don't know when baseball is even going to resume, but we're going to pretend that it is. So just because we need to have a little fun. Everybody just wants to hear something other than the CBA. I know I do. So we figured we'd start doing these little lists for you guys to give you something else to listen to on the sports front. So, Rob, who would be your top guy that you say is your number one untradeable prospect?
Yeah, well, here in fantasy land where baseball still exists, the one guy, the top guy that is untouchable is Jason Dominguez. You do not trade him for anything. This guy is projected to be a star and a very thin outfield in terms of prospects. Switch hitter, he's got power, he's got speed, he's gonna be either a really good center fielder, maybe even a corner outfielder, who knows, but he's so far everything's checking out the way that they say it was. His progression has been very steady. I think he's going to move up the system very quickly. And because we don't have so many people at that position right now, at least ones that we trust in the system, you do not move him for anything. I think that's the one guy you say, absolutely not. We're holding on to him. It is Dominguez. The hype is real, in my opinion. And I, as a prospect hugger, don't trade him.
No, I agree. The outfield depth on the prospect line is not as deep as the infield is. So, yeah, that's definitely. Donald, you're first.
Just on Dominguez.
All right.
Well, that was easy. No, I completely agree. Just purely because of the outfield lack of depth that we have, Dominguez is the untouchable as far as I'm concerned. Well, of the three untouchables, he's certainly number one on my list.
Yep, and my number one was Jason Dominguez. So there we go. You got the trifecta on Dominguez. And the one thing that stood out to me was, like Rob said, he's had steady progress in his, growing his skills. The outfield depth is not as deep as the infield, as we all see. There's a ton of infield prospects that could fill in gaps all over the place. So holding on to the outfield depth right now, as far as prospects, he would be that number one guy that it doesn't matter who you're offering, you're not getting him. And, the other thing I noted down is he was the first player to play in the futures game without having a full year as a minor leaguer. And I thought that spoke volumes to the potential that he can be as a major league player. And so that was one of those, it's like, if it's that rare that of all these prospects, he's the first, that's somebody that you hold on to and you don't let it go. And so that's how he became my number one untouchable. And so we'll go with you, Donald, to start the second spot.
Okay. Number two for me is actually going to be Volpe. I'm going to go with Volpe as my untouchable. I mean, it's a top prospect on our system right now, and one of the top-rated prospects in all of baseball right now. He's shot up the ranks, so I'm excited to see what he offers us. Maybe not this year, but next year.
All right. Yeah. No, he makes sense. And Rob, you're number two.
I'm leaving this one up to the Yankees because I had Volpe on my trade list, but I'm leaving this one up to the organization, which I don't know if it's a great idea or not, but I have
Volpe. Don't leave anything up to them.
I have both Volpe and Peraza at this spot because I want them to choose between one or the other. We have too many shortstops. They're not all going to play in the same infield. Yeah, theoretically, you can move one to third or to second, and a guy like Arias can also play another position. But you have an opportunity right now to move one of these guys for some elite major league talent that's going to help you win this year and next year as well. We don't know if these guys are going to be ready next year. Peraza more so than Volpe will be ready, but you have to choose. In my opinion, you got to choose one that you want to be the future at the shortstop position. If you're not going to pay the money for a shortstop, which I think it's clear they're not going to. So you have to choose one, and I think you have to move the other to get someone on this major league roster that's going to help you win right now. We've talked about it enough. There are a lot of holes on this team that when we do resume baseball, they're going to have to move quickly to fill those holes. So if you move one of these guys, you can get a premier talent at a position of need, whether it's first base, center field, maybe even third base if they feel that's a position of need if Gio moves on. One of those two have to be the future. They're both very, very talented, and you can definitely start a really big trade with one of those guys. And I'm leaning more towards Volpe because I think that I've explained it already. I just don't know if one really, really good year at like Class A is enough to be like, that's the future, where Peraza has been really good every level he's been at. So, but I'm leaving this up to Brian Cashman. Jesus, what's wrong with me? Pick one and move the other. This lockout is killing
really
me.
got into your head if you're trusting Cashman.
This lockout's getting to me.
All right, my number two is also I have Peraza down. Is because his progression has been a little more on pace, and Volpe has been the main talking point for trading, especially, he's the guy that we would give up for a Brian Reynolds, Olsen, somebody tangible and more realistically obtainable. So if he's the guy that everybody's going to be wanting, then the Yankees need to put their focus on keeping Peraza on pace to make the impact on the Yankees going forward. So, but that was another one of those. It could have been, I could have used the same argument you did. It's one or the other, and go from there. And I just think that Peraza's, we would see him a lot sooner rather than later, where Volpe has only been at Class A, and it's just too many. It's too long of a window to wait to see if something goes wrong. I think that, Volpe is one of those guys, as much as I'd like to keep him, don't get me wrong. But if it gives us, a solid trade possibility, you might have to bite the bullet on this one. They can't, we already missed the boat with the Pirates trade for Cole, wanting to hold on to everybody, and look where that got us. Chance Adams isn't even, I don't think he plays anymore. Look what happened to Andujar. So, and Clint Frazier. Those were the three big names that were being brought up in that trade with Pittsburgh. And it didn't, so that's why I've gotten to that point. If they're gaining that much interest, you gotta give it logical time to think it out and go, you know what, maybe we don't get fooled this time, and we pull the trigger and get it done. And so
right. It's a good problem to have, though.
No, it's definitely good.
Yeah, as a prospect guy, if Volpe is the future and he turns out to be a stud, great. I'll be thrilled because I was happy when we drafted him and I wanted to see him progress. But I also want to win a World Series this year. So if he's the piece that can get you that, elite talent, whether it's a starting, like I said, starting pitcher, whatever position it is, you kind of have to think about that. You can't keep everybody because there's just not enough spots in the infield for all of these infielders. We're talking about Sweeney, Arias, Cabrera, Peraza, Volpe. That's 5 players, and there's only 4 infield spots. Somebody's got to go, and you're not trading Arias. You literally just signed him. Sweeney just got drafted. The value for Volpe is through the roof right now, so I don't know if it's ever going to get higher because if he has even a slightly down year at Double-A where he's still playing well but not nearly as good, then his value drops a little bit. But I'm not saying they need to trade him, but if they were going to, because they're not going to spend the money in free agency, your best bet is to upgrade the team through trades. You have the prospect capital to do so, and I think you can't keep the money. It's something that Donald's brought up. They're trying to keep the money and keep the prospects. It's just the cheap operation that they're trying, and it's not smart. So you got to do something.
And Rob, while you're on a roll there, what was your number 3?
Number 3, I have catcher Antonio Gomez. I really, really like him. Scouting report says he's got good power. He's also better than most of our catchers in the system defensively. He's definitely better than Sanchez at this point when they were coming up. He's better than Wells is projected out to be. I believe Josh Bro is the only one who projects better defensively than Gomez will. He's got a cannon of an arm, so very similar to Sanchez, but he's also quick behind the plate. And that's something that we need. If you're not going to be an elite frame or whatever, we want you to be able to block the ball. That's a big issue with Gary Sanchez, right? So, Antonio Gomez, I think, would be a guy you hold on to. He does speak both English and Spanish, which helps in communicating with pitchers. It's a very big thing. That's something that they've talked about in his scouting report as well. And he's very, very young with a lot of room to grow. And we also have a lot of catching depth in our system as well. So we can move a guy like Austin Wells or a Siegler. And, again, we have so many pieces we can move around that if Gomez were to be the catcher of the future, or if it's Austin Wells, whatever you want to choose. But I like Gomez a lot. I think he projects to be a pretty solid all-around catcher at the major league level. So you need defense. The bat's nice and all, but we've seen our current situation. Our catcher has a really good bat at times, but doesn't really have the defensive ability. I think Gomez, if he projects the way he is, you're going to get a solid all-around major league catcher.
Donald, your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is Oswaldo Cabrera, the reigning Double-A Northeast League MVP. Oswaldo Cabrera absolutely tore it up last year. 29 home runs, 89 RBIs, 860 OPS, 21 stolen bases. He can play short, he can play second, he can play third. So you could be looking at a scenario where he could replace our third baseman, he could replace our second baseman, he could just come in right now because his defense is really good. His offense is really taken off. I was looking at his stats, and it's gone up massively in just a year. So he's really taking off. So he led the league in hits, extra bases. He was tied 3rd in the league in home runs, tied 5th in the league in stolen bases. He led the league in a bunch of categories. So just look at the difference that he had just in the space of 2 years, where he had 8 homers, 56 RBIs, 260 average. That was in 2019, and 221, 29 homers, 89 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, and 860 OPS. It's just 200 points higher than it was 2 years ago. So Oswaldo Cabrera is on fire right now. So he is my 3rd option, and I would love to see him being considered beside Volpe in a future dream infield. That would be pretty awesome. So he's Oswaldo Cabrera. Check it out.
No, that's an excellent point. Yeah, and when you have somebody that is versatile in multiple positions, that's nothing but helpful.
Plus, he's a switch hitter. As well.
That's another plus. That's a big plus. I love switch hitters. Yeah, because it really can. Switch hitters really help a lineup.
Yeah.
So you can't mix and match. Well, not that you can mix and match anymore with the 3-batter rule, but you don't. That was a key strategy with that. Where they used to pitcher every at bat.
I also like the fact that he's got 21 stolen bases last year, so he's got a little bit of speed on him.
They'll take that away on the major league level.
Oh, they will, 100%. And I also like the fact, another thing that's going to be taken away from him is the fact that I like what he said. He says about his approach. He's not looking to hit a home run every time. He's looking to make solid contact. And obviously his 279 batting average attests to that. But I'm sure, obviously, if he came up to the majors, that would be that would be wiped clean, and he'd have to hit a home run every at bat or easily gives. But no, I like everything that I'm seeing statistically, and a switch hitter with a bit of speed. Plus, he's versatile and he's good defensively. I mean, he takes every single box.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. But for my third choice, I actually went with Austin Wells. And the reasoning is he's got a couple more years on some of the other prospects. He also has shown interest and ability in first base. So I think holding on to him gives you that option of that multi position player that you can have, not knowing what, who you're going to sign in first base. Say for argument's sake, they re-sign Rizzo. He's already in his 30s. So you would want to have somebody that would be able to play first base behind him. So if they could always train, focus more on his first base fielding. And also, who knows after this season, what's going to happen with Sanchez? We might need somebody further along the pipeline to take over in 2023. So that's why I thought Austin Wells would have been a better fit over Gomez while picking the names. And so I thought, if you're able to have a multi-position prospect, that should be one of the first criterias of, like, do we want to get rid of these guys? Where are they in the system? How are they being scouted by other team scouts? I think all those have to be put into play by determining who is your untouchable. You think that's fair analysis?
Yeah. Austin Wells is a guy that's probably going to play another position at the major league level. Defensively, he's just not projecting well behind the plate. He's very similar to what we're seeing from Gary Sanchez, is what everyone's saying. He's basically going to be like a lefty Gary Sanchez. So that could project well, if you need a lefty bat. So if you want to stick him at first, we've even heard some talk about him potentially going to the outfield. He's got a good arm.
No, so we do talk very highly of lefty first baseman on the show.
Yeah, but it all depends on, in that regard, it's about the arm. Does he throw lefty? Does he throw righty? But
if he can play the outfield, then he's obviously got athleticism. So surely that puts him ahead of Gary Sanchez.
Well, most people will tell you that he's similar defensively. Gary Sanchez has a good arm. He could be. Wells is probably in better shape than Sanchez. Maybe probably runs faster. Doesn't mean that he's necessarily shifty behind the plate. There's a big difference there. You have to be able to move quickly while being crouched or on your knee, whatever the stance is that they want to use him with. So I don't know. I think I would like Wells to be the catcher of the future. I always thought he would be, but with the it really depends on what they want.
That's what it is. That's the thing with prospects. Opinions can change from year to year, even month to month. Depending on how they're playing while they're, when the season kicks in. So, Austin Wells 2 years ago was probably everybody's untouchable. And if now he's a little further, his name's not mentioned as often as it had in the past. Now all the focus is on the infielders with Volpe, as Peraza, even now Sweeney's getting a lot of attention, even though he's still a lot further away. But when you look at the outfield, you really only have Dominguez is the only name that really comes up, in everybody's discussion, which shows how, it's nice to have all these, infield prospects, but the ball does get past the infield once in a while. So, you need to evenly distribute your depth.
it would be remiss of us not to comment on our pitching prospects, because all three of our guys on each of our lists are all offensive guys. So let's think of who would be the pitching prospects that you would be viewed as untouchable. Rob, your prospect hugger and
He's on my
aficionado, who would you say?
he is on my list. It's Luis Medina. I thought we were doing 5, so I have 5 guys here. I have Luis Medina. I like him. You know, he's everyone seems to think he's going to go in the bullpen, but I don't know. The guy is already touching triple digits, and he's going to get that control issue down. That's going to be fixed. He's still a ways away, but when you're throwing triple digits, I mean, everyone seems to get 100 at this point, and they're coming up. But one thing we do have is we don't have really the names, you know, like the big names and prospects, but we have a lot of depth in our pitching system. But I think it's kind of like what I have with Volpe and Peraza. If you're going to choose between Medina and Heel, you kind of have to pick which one of those two you want, and the other one, it could be used in a trade that can get you a big, again, major league help right now. So, but I really like Medina.
Do you still consider Luis Heel on the prospect list, even though
that was my question? Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
He's on the
see what he's able to do, and I really think he can fine tune, because he did just. I thought he did fine for us last year.
Fine, he's phenomenal.
He really for being thrown into a role that nobody saw. It's not like he was that guy that we all knew was coming up. And just kind of was like, all right, finally something worth waiting for. So I think to give up on Heel now, maybe because he's already had major league games under his belt, his value's up a little bit, and you would want to hold on to Medina to kind of slide him, into that spot. It's gonna be gonna be something that would be interesting to watch out for.
Heel is my untouchable in terms of pitching. I've seen so much from him. His arm is phenomenal. It's all about control for him. If he gets his command figured out, then he's actually unhittable. I mean, remember how many starts was it that he put out in a row where he didn't give up a single run? It was
like 3 or 4 starts.
It was like
row.
3 or 4 in a row where there was 0 runs given up.
Yeah.
And he was striking everybody out. He was touching triple digits at times. I mean, the guy has got insane movement on his pitches. He's awesome. So I would put him as my pitching untouchable.
Yeah.
What do you think about What do you think of Ken Waldichuk? I know he's obviously not kind of to the arm level as Medina or Heel, but he's kind of a guy that could fit in as a middle bottom starter and fit in pretty comfortably. I mean, he had a 3 ERA last year, 63 record, 3 ERA. What do you think of Waldichuk?
Well, he's another solid name. Like I said, middle of the rotation. Probably he's a lefty, and that's something that we could always use in the rotation, is another lefty arm. So I like Waldichuk, but like I said, these are, in terms of their prospect listing, they're not the fancy names. Like, no one's talking about him being on a top 100 list or anything like that. But he's a guy that, like Jordan Montgomery, could come up and just be good. He's a guy that you'd be like, all right, he's 24. Yeah, he's 24. So he could come up this year if we're being honest. He's close. I know he was only in AA, but more than likely we'll see him at the AAA level this year. And I think he's a guy that would, like Montgomery, just come up, be solid, and even if he's a number 4 or 5, that's not a bad thing, because
maybe a middle relief. He could probably maybe see
even longer
at some point this year.
Especially if you want to keep him as a starter, if you're able to get 2 innings out of him to keep it, instead of just going up against a couple of batters.
I don't want them to keep doing that, because that's what they kind of did with Michael King, and we've seen them do that with too many players where they're a starter in the minors, they come up and they're pitching out of the bullpen and they just don't look the same. King has been clearly better out of the bullpen. I think we have way too much bullpen depth at this point.
Same thing with Loizaga. Loizaga was a starter that turned into the bullpen.
Some guys
he's fit in well to this.
Right. Yeah. I think Waldichuk he's going to end up being a a good starting pitcher. And if that's the bottom of the rotation, that's fine, because that's really what we need right now is guys who are going to fill out the bottom of the rotation.
It hasn't worked for what they did with Clark Schmidt. That's not worked, because that was the example, Tats, of trying to focus someone into a middle relief role where he's just not cut out for it. He's a starter. And he's immensely struggled in these bullpen roles. I don't think
we've said it before. They've totally screwed up Schmidt.
Oh yeah. They got overly excited too early. I think they just kind of rushed him in.
But the Yankees have that history of really messing with these pitches. You go all the way back, with Phil Hughes and Chamberlain. They're a starter, they're a reliever, they're a closer. They're playing. They're all over the map in the pitching spectrum. And they, Phil Hughes was, I think, he was the one that really came through for us. He was an important part of that World Series. But we've already seen, every pitcher that comes up, we always worry about those jobber rules. That fear is ingrained in Yankee fans.
Stupidest idea.
We've seen this story before, and it's not a good story.
That was the stupidest idea, wasn't it? Though, I mean, in hindsight,
the jobber rules,
advertising in advance how many pitches he's going to be making. He's not going to pitch any more than 60 pitches. So the opposition will be like, "Oh, okay. So we'll just draw the pitch count up, and then I get him out after 2 innings. Oh, no problem. I can do that."
See, I never
because he was unhittable back then. So all you have to do is just foul off a couple pitches, get a couple of 3-ball counts, and before you know it, he was on 60 pitches by the tail end of the second inning, and that was him. I mean, that was it. Like, what kind of stupidity? Who pre-advertises what you're going to do? And this is Brian Cashman. It's all about Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman is terrible, egregious with pitching prospects. He doesn't know what to do.
2 groups that he's messed up: Hughes, Chamberlain, and Kennedy, and then the killer bees: Brackman, Betances, Banuelos. They were all like the guys, you're not trading them. No, they're not going anywhere. Because remember, we didn't get Johan Santana because we didn't want to trade 2 of the 3. And I'm, kind of in hindsight, it's a good thing we didn't, because Santana ended up getting hurt every year. But at the time, that was like one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you could have had him, and that I believe was 2007. So I mean, we could have used him that year. Maybe maybe we went further than the division series, but yeah. The Yankees have always been pretty bad with developing pitchers. That's why every prospect on this list, I'm like cautious to be like, keep him so you can call him up, because they don't know what to do with them. They're so good. Our minor league system, the coaching, the scouting is so good, and they get here and it's
ruined.
The
leadership up top that sucks.
Yeah, because Cashman's got that damn ego of his, and he wants to be right about everything, but they screw with people. Like Florial is a perfect example of someone they've screwed with. He's been fine everywhere he's played. Nothing spectacular, right? He's not. No one's talking about Florial as being the next Bernie Williams or anything like that. But
we're not asking
a fine player.
Yeah,
right. We've seen him be good when we've had him up, and they just keep saying, "We'll call you up, but you're going to sit on the bench." Why? Leave him in AAA then, and let him get at bats in. It baffles me the way they treat these prospects. You don't want to trade them, but you want to keep them just so they can rot on the bench. Like, that's why I would like them to trade Volpe, because I've seen this story before. Like, we're not trading you, but we're also not going to play you. Look at Clint Frazier. They didn't want to move him for Garrett Cole. Did they use him right? No. So, their major league leadership stinks.
Yeah, could have commanded a king's ransom for Andujar, but they didn't actually have a position or an idea what they're going to do with Andujar after his breakthrough year. And that's another example. They could have gotten a king's ransom for him. What could you get now? I mean,
but
you couldn't get a freaking candy bar for him now.
Yeah, but at that point, was anybody really rushing to trade Andujar? I mean, if you're really being honest with yourself,
Machado was on the market. And we could have possibly gotten him that year if we gave up Andujar. I mean, anyone even though it was 1 year of Machado, we knew he wanted to be here. So you had a really good shot at re-signing him the next year anyway.
Machado, yeah.
I mean, I know that Cashman was flooded with calls for Andujar after year 1. Flooded. I mean, listen, I was campaigning. I was campaigning to keep him. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to keep him, but Yet also, I'm not a general manager, and a smart general manager, I would have assumed, would have had a plan as to how to use him. And I'm not just going to blame it all on injuries to give Cashman an easy break, because Cashman never had a position for him. So he was kind of like the third base, but he wasn't really all the way sold on him at third base. So
Well,
kind of maybe
his
DH, maybe
defense was
then they
hard to
try him
fit.
with first, and then maybe sure the outfield, and it doesn't help his development. Really.
No, but that's another one. They rather than just letting him work something out or optioning him back down and let him work on his defense in AAA, they decided to play games with Andujar, bounce him all over the place. His injuries did not help him. It's not that he's been healthy this whole time and the Yankees are hiding him. Although some of his injuries have been questionable.
He's also been unlucky.
Yeah.
Like the injuries are one thing, but then he got hurt, and then Gio just takes the job from him, and he's not giving that job up. So a little bit unlucky in that regard. But I mean, you talk about 2018, we could have had Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole in the same offseason, and all it would have cost us was Starlin Castro and some prospects. I mean, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be one of the bigger what ifs during this championship window. Even though we have them both right now, we could have had Cole a year earlier, and maybe in 2018 we get past the Red Sox in that first round with Garrett Cole. It's always going to be a what if that I ask myself, because in hindsight, you make that trade 10 times out of 10. And Duhar's not being used right now. Frazier's with the Cubs, and Chance Adams, who knows where he is? I don't even know where he is. So in hindsight, that's a trade you make every day. And you would have had 2 years of Garrett Cole, who was brilliant with Houston for those 2 seasons. So I mean, a lot could have been different.
The other player that one thing I remember hearing was when Cano's contract was when he reached free agency. There were fans that were like, well, we have Ref Snyder, to take second base. We don't need Cano. If he wants to be that greedy, let him go. We have Ref Snyder. Where did he go? Ref Snyder ended up not being, not holding his own.
Yeah, they don't use.
It's hard to hold. It's hard to really project where these prospects are going to end up and how they're going to grow.
He was a classic case of a major league bat and minor league defense, and it's the same as Andujar. It's the same as Frazier. Minor league defense, major league bat, and then you're kind of stuck in this quandary going, is he a quadruple A player because of that? Like, is there a way that you can fit him in on a roster and be productive with his bat, which is really good, but then with the fact that his defense is a liability? And that's been a case now for a bunch of Yankee prospects. When you have, and it's the same with Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez, minor league defense, major league bat. What do you do? And the Yankees are kind of stuck in this. And that's why the Yankees feel like they've got a whole team of DHs at times. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of guys that could be really good DHs. So same with Luke Voigt, minor league defense, major league bat. So there's, you can go through the list. The Yankees seem really fixated on power, but not so much defense. So Rob Refsnyder, very, very limited. So yeah, he was a limited player, but I know it's not a bad example because again, it's just it goes with that narrative. So I really want to.
Well, I use him as an example because it's, do you spend money on the big free agent or trust your process within?
Well, that's what my next point was going to be. My next point was going to be like, a minor league system is ideal because if you're bringing up somebody, if you've got a plan to develop somebody, then you're saving yourself, all this money in free agency or all these prospects in trade if you've already got somebody sitting in your system that could come up. But you need to have a plan for them. And that's what my question is. I don't think Brian Cashman actually has a plan. It's just kind of like, oh, well, we'll just stick him at the end of the bench and then hopefully he magically just becomes fantastic on his own. But we won't know that because we won't play him. You know what I mean? How is he going to trust that Florial sitting on the end of a bench as the 26th man? How is he going to suddenly randomly develop by being shuttled from AAA to the majors back and forth and maybe play a game here, a game there? That's not going to develop anybody.
No, it's not. No. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with some of these prospects, where they end up, how they move up the ranks, and our minor league system. I know that they're going to be, Volpe and Dominguez are projected to go, further up the pipeline, fairly quickly, along with Peraza. And I think we're going to see a lot more. We're going to hear a lot more about Medina in the pitching role and see where he's shaping up. So it's going to be a very interesting year for the prospects and the minor league pipeline. And it's going to determine how successful this imaginary off season will be once business opens up. And where the free agents are going to end. What free agents they're going to attack and where they're going to build within. And so it's going to be. I think it's just going to be chaotic. Is really the only word.
Oh,
and it's not going to help anybody. It's going to. We think we're at odds with each other now over some of these positions. I think Yankees Twitter is going to be, on fire, with free agents, because if they sign Correa, that changes the landscape completely. And so, if they sign Freeman, or if they trade, if they do trade for Olsen, that changes the landscape of where the prospects rank right there. So
because of the chaos that's going to happen when the lockout is lifted, and every team is going to be scrambling, like it's going to be like a mad scramble rush.
Yeah.
During spring training, well, whatever spring, maybe be summer training, might be autumn training. During autumn training, you're gonna have like 4 weeks, and you have to completely rebuild your roster. And the Yankees have to completely rebuild their roster. I don't trust they're gonna do it. I think that the Yankees might just postpone it for a year. They might go, right, what position is an absolute necessity? Right, shortstop. Well, I don't want to go major years on him because I've got like 172 prospects in the minor league system that can play shortstop. So we'll maybe sign Simmons. I could see the Yankees, without knowing anything, I could see the Yankees trying to go, well, we'll sign a outfielder to compete with Hicks. We'll go big on a first baseman.
With Hicks when he doesn't play?
And they'll go big on a first baseman, and then we'll sign a short-term shortstop. That is what I think. And then maybe a third or fourth pitcher. I don't think it's going to be as spectacular as Yankee fans hope.
It won't.
I really don't.
No. It's going to be a guy like Simmons or a trade for Falefa. They're going to bring back Brett Gardner within 5 minutes of the lockout ending, and then we'll probably get Rizzo or Freeman, maybe. More than likely going to end up being Rizzo, in my opinion. But yeah, that's going to be the bulk of it, I think. And they're going to use the lockout as an excuse. Well, we had ideas. Yeah, we wanted.
Yeah, we were in a rush. Yeah, we didn't have time to evaluate. Yeah, there's going to be a million excuses coming out of Cashman, and I think, and I'm not even going to say just Cashman. I think a lot of GMs are going to, and the owners are not going to be as willing to work with some of these agents, because
nailed it.
No matter who wins, no matter where this deal goes, somebody's going to be pissed off. And they're going to be sour like they already are, And the other point is, I think that Boris needs to mind his business. Stay out of it.
That was a great point that you made, man. Whoever side wins, one of them's going to be pissed off. Yeah. Could not be more right, bro. That is exactly what's going to happen. Because I've already read that there's 4 owners which voted against that final offer that went to the table. 4 owners voted against it. So, I mean, and that was an owner that was laughed at by the MLBPA as being derisory. And that was their final offer. And 4 owners thought it was too generous. In fact, I think most owners thought it was too generous, but 4 completely voted against it. That's what I read.
Yeah, there was a graphic that went around Twitter with the pictures of the owners that voted it out. And I think there were 7 of them that were just like, no deal. We're not budging. And so they're the ones holding it up. Those seven owners are preventing us from having this game. And it's just a shame.
Well, no, it's not. I think I don't know if it's just 7 because that was just the vote. That was the vote against
Well,
the actual
those
final
were
offer
the,
that was taken to the table. I think it's all the owners combined, which is holding
I
back
was
the
saying,
game.
those were the 7 that were ousted. So you can't say all when you only know of. So I don't want to really. I can only I only want to speak on what I've seen and was able to read on. So I don't want to just say, I don't want to say, well, Cashman did it if his name's not attached to that graphic. Because it's you don't know, even though we could all speculate.
They can all go kick rocks. Screw them.
There you go. So, all right, let us know in the comments what prospects you think are untouchable, and just or is there somebody that we brought up that you really just you want to just keep an eye on that may not completely be untouchable? Who are your favorite prospects in the Yankee pipeline? Let us know in the comments. Also, like and subscribe. You are watching Pinstripe Chronicles on SportsWire Radio and Northeast Streaming Sports. Wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching.